everyone, my name is We Don't Care My Name Is, and here we go with a very special video that I've been working on for quite some time. And I've actually been holding off on working on it because I wanted to make sure I get every information I need and also go over this with other people to get their thoughts and opinion about it to see which one they prefer. And now that I got exactly what I needed, I wanted to thank them all for, giving me their thoughts and opinions. I appreciate it, guys, and I want to thank TTV Medias for their help as well. So, without any further delay, let's get started and talk about which one's better, DC's live action or DC's animated films. Now, for this video, I'm actually going to focus on the movies that came out in theaters or direct-to-video. I will not include any live-action or animated television shows, but if this video does go well, and if you guys are interested, I will actually go over those and see which one I feel is better. Alright, with that being said, let's get started with the storytelling and see which one does a better job at telling their stories. For DC's live-action films, I kind of have a bit of a mixed feelings about this, because on one hand, there are some films that actually do a good job keeping the audience interested from the beginning, middle, end. Whether it's because of the fact they're able to keep it well-paced, keep the story interesting, make it fun, entertaining, and have the audience get invested in this story. And a good example of that I can use is the Dark Knight movies, or even the Wonder Woman movie, or even the Joker movie. Those are good examples of good stories that are able to keep people wanting to know where this is going and seeing how this is going to go in the end. However, there are other times when their stories are either too dark, less fun, annoying, boring, confusing, and you just lose the audience right away at the very beginning of the film. A good example of bad storytelling is Green Lantern, Batman and Robin, the Justice League film, Batman v Superman, and Catwoman. Now, this can be caused because the studio gets involved, or because the people who are writing the story just want to make some completely different story for this film that has no connection to the original source material, and they just completely go on a different course. And that is very disappointing, and it does lead to the audience getting mad and very ticked off. But when it comes to the animated films, when it comes to telling their story, it's actually kind of rare to see them actually screw this up. They actually do a good job keeping the story very entertaining. They keep it fun. They're able to keep you invested in what's going on, which is very impressive considering the fact that a lot of them are either 90 minutes or less, which is not a lot of time to tell their story, but they're still able to do the best they can, keep it paced, keep it well balanced out, and they're able to keep people entertained in what's going on and keep them invested, keep them wondering where this is all going to go. A good example of this I can use is Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where you don't know where the mystery of this story is going to go. Is it going to have a happy ending? And a lot of times it doesn't always have a happy ending. Another good example of this is Batman Under the Red Hood, or even Flashpoint Paradox, or even Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. These are good examples of stories to keep you entertained from the beginning, middle, and end, because you want to see where it's all going to go. And that's what you want to do. Alright, well, it looks like the animated films win the storyline, but what about the characters? What about which ones had the better actors and voice actors to play the heroes and villains for their stories? Well, when it comes to live action, I actually have to say they actually did have a lot of great actors who portrayed the role of the characters a lot better than I think a lot of people thought they would have. Not only were they given a lot of time to get developed in their story, but they were able to get the audience behind them. They were able to leave such memorable performances in these films and are remembered very fondly by the people. Even at times when the fans didn't think that the person who got the role should have been playing that role in the first place. A good example of this is Michael Keaton. A lot of people didn't think he should have played Batman, but he not only was able to prove them all wrong, but he became, the Batman that they all fell in love with. And this also was the same thing with Heath Ledger. There were some people who didn't think he would do a great job playing as Joker, but look what happened. He ended up not only being an amazing Joker, but he also became one that intimidated a lot of people. However, that's not always the case for a lot of actors, because the actors that are chosen are not only leave a forgettable performance on the characters that are playing, but they also are not developed very well. They're seen as a joke, and they're just to be there. And it's a shame too, because I think a lot of these actors who played the main villain or play one of the important characters could have done a much better job. But instead, much like Marvel with their villains, DC's villains a lot of times don't leave much of an impact, and it's such a huge disappointment. However, when it comes to the voice acting, I will say this: they do a great job with their performances. You can tell they're giving it their all, especially when they're voicing their characters, when they need to sound like they're happy, angry, or struggling, or devastated, or in pain. They do a great job with their performances. They're able to get the fans behind the characters. They're able to get them invested. They want to see what happens to them to the very end, whether they're the good guys or bad guys. Either way, they do a great job with their performance. They do such an amazing job to the point they leave such a big impact. And a good example of this is Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. They do a great job with their performance as Batman and Joker, and there's such great chemistry between the two of them. So with that being said, it seems like I'm going with the animated characters, right? I'm going with the voice actors doing a better job within the live action. For this one, I'm going to have to say it's a little bit of a draw, because there are times when a lot of the animated characters that are in the movies don't leave much of an impact the same way as the live action characters do at times, mostly because they're not developed enough or just there just to be there. And there are times when their characters do something out of character that just come out of nowhere, and it doesn't always turn out well. So I'm going to go with live action for this one. Just mostly because a lot of their actors do a pretty good job with their performances, but also because they can do a little bit more than the animated characters than the voice actors can. But again, that's mostly because of the fact that Heath Ledger as Joker, I love how well he performed the role. Now, yes, Mark Hamill will always be the best Joker of all time, but to see it live action and that performance, I'm like, that's enough for me, especially Joaquin Phoenix as Joker. Like, there are some things that the voice actors are not going to be able to replicate, and that's the kind of thing you can replicate with an animated character. You can only do that kind of performance live action. Alright, so with that being said, it looks like it's time to see which one is the best when it comes to special effects or when it comes to animation for the whole film. This could be with the character design, it could be for the fights, it could be for the cities, it could be for pretty much everything else, to see which one visually did a better job. So, when it comes to special effects for live action movies, there is, like with the stories, a mixed bag here. For some films, some of the special effects models and the way that they are shot are still done very well. A good example of this is Tim Burton movies. The way the city of Gotham looks, it looks like something out of the from the comic book. Even at times when the special effects, there are times when it doesn't look real. There are times when it does look fake. It still looks very nice. It still looks very good, and it still looks very impressive, especially as time passes on. However, there are times when they don't need special effects for certain moments, like the fight scenes. There are times when they can just use real people for the fight scenes, use stunt people for it, and those are done very well, and they can be a lot of fun. However, there are a lot of times when the movie does go overboard with the special effects and does go a little bit overboard with the fight scenes, making them look fake as hell, or just look incredibly bad. A good example of this is Green Lantern. I mean, Green Lantern's a perfect example of what happens when you rely way too much on special effects, terrible fight scenes, and make everything look like a video game with a bad graphics. And sadly, even big films like Justice League suffer from the same problem as well. And yes, of course, Aquaman, Shazam, Wonder Woman, a lot of times do use the special effects, does look fake at times, especially for the fight scenes. However, they still do a good job making it look fun, making it look entertaining, and are able to make the film, not look that messy. But there are other times when they do make a mess and can't go back to reshoot it or can't go back to make some changes. And when they do make changes, it doesn't always go well. Superman mustache. Anyways, when it comes to the animated films, they actually have a little bit more control what they're doing. They're able to draw everything how they want it to go, and if they make any mistake, they can just go back and fix it and make it look good. And they can also do things that live action movies can't do, especially for the big fight scenes. There are a lot of times when the big fight scenes can look epic and look realistic and look a lot better than the live action films, because those rely more on CGI because there are a lot of things you can't do. And they're able to have the characters express better emotions than most of the actors can in their performances, especially in moments of crisis or emotional moments. Now, yes, in animated movies, there are times when the final design, there are a lot of characters and fights that don't always look perfect, and we wish they would make a lot of changes to them. Or we would even wish we could see in live action, but there are still able to do things that would most likely end up being CGI, and they are able to get away with a lot more than the live action films can do. For a good example of this is Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. They're able to get away with a lot of things that I don't think you can do any of that live action. And if you could, that's most likely going to be PG-13, knowing Warner Brothers. So, in conclusion, it's from everything I said, it seemed like the final winner of this is the DC animated films. So, yeah, it's pretty much the clear winner here. Now, keep in mind that there are a lot of good live action films out there, and there are a lot of good ones out there with good stories and great actors, and they can be better than the animated films at times too. However, when it comes to telling their story, they don't do a very good job with the characters. Both animated and live action don't always do a good job. There's always a bit of a mixed bag there, but they still balance it out well with a lot of good actors. But when it comes to animated films, when it comes to their fight scenes, the design for the characters, they're able to do things that live action can't do. Not all of them are going to be perfect. Not all of them are going to hold a candle to the amazing live action movies that we do have that are actually fun and entertaining, but they are able to do things that live action movies can't do. But in the end, there is no question in my mind that both the live action and animated films have left a huge mark in the world of movies. They're able to go out there and tell the stories that can get fans invested. They're able to have amazing characters that people can relate to or even support, love, and are able to even leave a lasting emotional and special moments that we'll always remember. There are a lot of bad films out there, both animated and live action, but there are a lot of others that people will be happy to watch. They'll be able to enjoy seeing every single time, and they are the ones that will leave a great impact among everyone. So, in the end, although DC animated films won this round, I still feel like they both did a great job with their performance, with their films, and are both going to be remembered for a good long time. Also, let's be honest. Yes, Marvel's live action films will always beat DC's live action animated films, but at least their animated television shows will always be better than the Marvel animated shows. So, let's be glad for that. So that's pretty much it, guys. You have a different opinion about anything I just said about DC's live action animated films, leave in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Hit the subscribe button, check out my Facebook page, check out my Twitter page. Also check out T3 Media's channel as well. Subscribe to their channel, keep up to date with their video, and subscribe to their channel and keep up to date with everything they have. And I will see you all next time to give you more love and more entertainment. So until then, guys, take care. See you all next time, and have a good day.